So tonight we are going to walk through audio editing. So real quickly, I thought the first thing we would do is walk through the audio project and the requirements for that, answer any questions for that, and then we will sort of immediately jump into creating a product. We're going to use a tool called Audacity, which is a free open source tool for this, but you are welcome to use any audio editing tool that you would like. So if you're a Mac person, you may choose to use GarageBand. If you're on another platform or have familiarity with some of the other audio editors, I think I'm not sure what the one in the Creative Cloud suite is called. I've never used it. I don't even know if they have a specific audio editor. I know they have video editor, Premiere, and Final Cut and stuff. But anyway, so Audacity will be the main one we use. But again, you're welcome to use anything you want as well to meet the criteria. So let me get my screen share started here. Okay, so the idea for this is that you're creating an audio project to incorporate into your multimedia project. Now, it's not required that you do that, so your audio project can really be on any topic you want, but the general idea is that it's on the same topic as your multimedia project, and then towards the end of the course, you just kind of plug it in some meaningful way that illustrates your knowledge of the appropriate use of audio as a form of media for teaching and learning. So again, as you're kind of thinking about what your audio project topic might be, it should align, but it can be something different. But also be thinking about how you're going to use it in the multimedia project. So are you going to use it as an introduction to the concept? Are you going to use it as like the first of a series of podcasts that you might integrate into your product? Are you going to use it as a tool to maybe walk through a series of graphic of images or something like that? So kind of making sure that you address those strengths and weaknesses of audio that we talk about in the course. Okay, so what your file is simply going to have is going to be assessed on content components, technical components, and then presentation components. So from the content, so is it something that's appropriate to be addressed via audio? Do you provide an introduction of both yourself and the content? Do you adequately address the topic? Does your background music match the audio topic? So if you're doing something soothing and you know, we'll say soothing, and then your background music is, you know, death metal, that's probably not the most appropriate fit. I don't know, maybe, but you know, do those match? Do you emphasize important elements when appropriate? So, and really the key there is, you know, just not being monotone throughout. And, you know, if you were having somebody read text, you might highlight the text with bold or changing the color, or doing that on a website, or in an image, you might point to something. So how might you highlight and emphasize important elements with audio? So be thinking of that as you're moving through. And then it needs to be 1 to 3 minutes in length. So I have to listen to 34-ish of these. So anything over 3 minutes, I will hunt you down and chastise you immensely for it. So I'm just kidding. Then the technical components. So you have to have background music for the introduction and the closing. If you have an introduction that's not necessarily music, that's okay, but just reach out to me and say, hey, I'd like to do this for my introduction and this for my closing. It's not music per se, but can I do that? And I'm fine with tweaking as long as you let me know and ask ahead of time. Lengthy pauses are removed. So anytime there's a long pause, you know, you go in and edit that out. All audio is at the same level. So unless there's a reason for the audio level to be different, you want it to be at the same level. How many of y'all have watched a TV show and the commercial comes on and blasts at like 10 times the audio level? So it's super annoying, and it distracts the listener. And then all distracting elements are removed. So and, you know, those kind of things are taken out. And then background noise is removed. So if you're mouse clicking or crumpling up paper or hitting your space bar, things like that, you've removed those noises from the audio, and we'll talk about how to do that and some ways to do that tonight as well. From the presentation aspect of it, so it sounds natural, so not like you're reading directly from a script. The narration is appropriate for the audience. So if it's for maybe somebody, for lower audiences, you might speak, or lower grade audiences, you might speak a little slower, more enunciate more, or whatever. If you're using it for like foreign language speakers, there may be, you would adjust the narration accordingly for that as well. You are enthusiastic. The speaker is enthusiastic. The speaker narrates at an appropriate rate, changes tone frequently, provides advanced organizers. So sort of the whole tell them what you're going to tell them, and then conclude by telling them what you told them. You provide an effective conclusion. You were focused, so you didn't start rambling like I do all the time. And then the audio was well planned, organized, and structured. So pretty straightforward. Makes sense, right? Those are the general components that are assessed in the other media products as well. And then you're going to upload your product as either a WAV file or an MP3 file. Again, you're going to want to consider your user. So WAVs are a little higher quality, but they're also huge files. So if I'm dealing with a population with slower broadband access or slower internet access, I'm not going to use a WAV file because of the file size. I would convert it to an MP3. Okay, so I'll stop there. And any questions about the audio project, the criteria, anything like that? All right. I do such a good job of explaining it that that's the issue. Okay. So in the past, we've talked about creating our website and creating our Power Graphics layout presentations and those sorts of things. One of the first things I said to you is you always want to have a map or an outline of where you're going. So what I have done tonight, and you want to collect all of the resources that are going to be necessary to create that particular product. So what I did tonight is I created my script. So here's my script. I have my intro music, and I've collected my intro music in a folder. It doesn't have to be in a folder, just it's easy for organizational purposes. Then I have my narration, and what I've done is I went ahead and read this and create all the audio as a single audio file. And I'll show you how I did this in a minute, or what I did in a minute. And then wherever there are like transitions, so here I'm going to say number 1, and I have a little kind of audio clip that's has an audio effect. So I'm going to leave in my narration, once I'm done with that, so let's begin, I'm going to leave a big pause. So in the WAV file, I can see there's a big pause, so I'll know that's where the number 1 goes. And then I'm going to read this text here, and then I'm going to leave a big pause, and etc. So this is my script that I've created ahead of time, so I know exactly what I'm going to do when I am actually creating the audio. So share here and reshare. So this might be difficult to see, but what I did is, so here's my script, which I don't really need anymore. This Joe Farron American Dream is my intro audio and my outro audio. Oh, I don't have my narration. Okay, I have to find that. Hold on a second. So here's my number 1, my number 2, and my number 3, the audio clips. And then here's my last but not least. Bear with me one moment, because I have to, apparently I didn't include my my narration here. So give me 1 second. All right, got it. Sorry. So what I did is I just had this demo narration. Let me pull it. I'll share real quick. This demo narration file here that is just the narration, and then I have my audio transitions there, and then my intro outro music. So I'm going to go ahead now and share Audacity with you. So I have a chat here. So Jamie, the idea is that it's the same topic as your other projects, but it can be different. There's no requirement that it's the same as the multimedia project. It's just the idea is that you then use it and plug it into your multimedia project later on. Okay. All right. So this is the Audacity interface, and it's pretty simplistic in nature. A lot of the tools that you see here and icons you've seen before. Up here are our basic. We use these for playing and pausing and recording and stopping, as you might imagine. So here, whenever I want to record something, there's an icon here that you may have seen before for recording. Can anyone tell me what that icon is? Y'all are slow. Come on, y'all. Okay, yeah, of course, the red circle there would be what would be used for recording. So they try to use things that are relatively similar to other items that you've used. So you have your zoom tool. This right here allows you to shift the time to the right and to the left. We'll get into all these later a little bit more. You have your speaker levels, your mic levels and your speaker levels. Here, you have your microphone. It picks for you, but if you want to change, so if you have a higher quality microphone, you can select what that might be here if you had multiple microphones. Likewise with speakers, if you have higher quality speakers you want to play through, you can modify here. Most of the other stuff you don't really need to worry about. Here you have some cut, copy, and paste stuff, your playback levels and things like that. So we'll get into some of these, but we'll also not worry about a number of them as well. Okay, so got some chat questions, it looks like. Okay, yes, okay, go like it. Okay. All right, so and then these right here are where our tracks go, and once we start pulling in other content, this will get a little more powerful. Here you see how long the play is. You can start and end. You can control where you want to watch or listen to something. The rate that you really don't need to worry about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply import each of those pieces of audio that I have. So y'all can't see this. Let me go to my big screen for a minute. Stop share my entire desktop. So here, if I go to Audacity, if I go to File, I can import audio. And then it asks me what I want to import. Select one or more files. Well, I already selected audio for Audacity. I want to select demo narration all the way down to narration number 1, 2, and 3. And I just click open. And it's going to import each of those on a different track. Okay. So this one right here is demo narration. And if I zoom in on this, what I see is that there's this narration, there's this beginning part here, and then I see this big gap around. I'm gonna actually stop real quick. Actually, let me go through a few things real quick here before I start playing around, so I can go back to the focusing on the smaller screen here. So in the file, this is where you're gonna new document, open all your basic stuff. The big thing here is export and import. So here's where we would export as an MP3 when we're finished, and or as a WAV or another type. Edit is where I can cut, copy, paste, delete. I can clip boundaries. I can split, which is really useful. So if I want to split a track, I can split it at a particular point. I can join tracks and other things there. Nothing else really there. Select, I really rarely use select. View, I use view for zooming in, but I usually do that on the toolbar, so it's not a big deal. Transport, I don't really mess with transport. Tracks, I'll rename these sometimes. I'll remove tracks. I'll mute or unmute tracks periodically. I can mute all or mute selected tracks. I'll align tracks sometimes, but these are just organizational tools really. Generate, generate silence. So if I want to have a piece of just blank silence, I'll use the generate silence, but otherwise I don't really use this too much. The effects, though, are really useful here. So later on, I'll mention the effect, and I'll be making some effect items or effects using some of these, but I won't be showing this whole screen again. So the ones that I'll be using are the echo is the one that I use to record the 1, 2, and 3, and the last but not least. But then also down here you have you can change your pitch, you can change your speed, you can change your tempo. If you have clicks in there, you can click removal, so you can select a piece of the audio here, and you will work on that later, but you can then select click removal, and then also noise reduction. So it'll remove some of the background noise if there's background noise in your audio. So it's really clean and an easy way to do that. Those are the big ones I use. I do use some of the others. I'll play around with them just to see if I can add some cool effects to my audio, but usually I don't really mess with that too much. And then these other things you don't really need to worry about these. Most of the stuff that you're going to work with is in this toolbar area up here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing the big screen and reshare just Audacity. Okay. So what I want to do here is I want to get my intro outro music going. So I'm going to mute all of my tracks except for the intro outro music. Okay. So I'm going to click on the mute here. I'm going to click on mute for number 3, mute for number 2, mute for number 1. And now I've just played my music. Whoops. There's one I didn't mute. Which one didn't I mute? Oh, I didn't mute that one. Okay. So now they're all muted, so except for the music. So I think 5 seconds is plenty. Stop. I think 5 seconds is plenty there. So what I want to do here is I just want to go up to this selection tool. I'm going to put this around maybe 6 seconds. And I'm just going to go to the right. Until the end. And you see how it's taken me a really long time to do that? That's because I've zoomed in pretty close. So if I wanted to zoom out, it'll make it all more compressed on the screen. So I'm just going to delete all that. So if I zoom out, let me zoom out. So I can start seeing everything on the screen here better. So I'm still going to zoom in a little bit more. But now you can see everything on the screen a little bit less. The grays are the muted ones. So now what I want to do is I want to take my intro audio here. My narration, and I'm going to shift it over to the right. So if I look up here, these are really powerful tools, these 6 tools right here. I use these a lot. This one right here is my shift tool, time shift. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm just going to go to my demo narration track and just move it over. And I see that I have a little bit of like kind of noise, like silence, but with a little blip there. So what I want to happen is an intro narration music to play, and then there'll be a slight overlap with the audio starting, and then I'll fade the intro audio out. And we'll get into that in a minute. But so now this is generally around where we want it to go. So now I want to do, if you see this gap right here, and if I go here and play, I guess I got to turn it on. I'm going to mute this one and unmute this one. If I go here, which is due on November 24th. So let's begin. So let's begin is the first part of where my the number 1 comes in. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is go to number 1, and let me see if I can move this track up. Move track up. That's number 2. I'm going to move track up, and I'm going to move track up. So now I have number 1 right here, and I'm going to click on my time shift tool, and I'm just going to kind of try and line it up with this right here. Does that make sense? Your final submission. So it's muted right now, but so number one is kind of placed in that number one area there. Okay, so I have another gap here. Guess what's probably going to go there? Number two. If you said that, you're correct. You get 10,000 non-credit bonus points. So I'm going to go to move number two up just a little bit. So move that track up just for ease. I'm going to then move my time. I can actually then click minimize that. So now move track two over to about there. And we'll clean this up in a little bit. So minimize that now. And then I go back, go over here a little bit further. So there's number two, another gap here. Guess what's probably going to go there? If you said number three, you are brilliant. So we're going to move number three over. I can move it up, move the track up just for organizational purposes. Minimize it. And where is it? Okay. So I'm going to kind of drag it over. Okay. And then last but not least, if you guess that it will go in the last gap, that is right there, you are awesome and brilliant and just a great person all around. Okay, so we have the general layout kind of done. I'm going to unmute all of these. I'm just gonna leave them as full on. Okay, so we kind of have it pretty much laid out now. We got to do some cleaning up. Now, if I wanted to listen to these to make sure everything was fine, I could do that. But everything's fine. Everything's laid out nicely. So now what we want to do is just kind of organize and get this working like we want it to. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get this audio cleaned up. I want to start with I want to fade it in and then fade it out. So does that make sense? So I want to fade it in as it starts, and then as the narration starts, I want to fade it out. So what I'm going to do up here is you see this tool called the envelope tool. And so what this allows me to do is pick points on I can click, and then I can drag them up and down. And you can see that it kind of, lowers increases or lowers the level of it. So if I watch this real quickly, or if I play this back, kind of fades out and then goes into the narration. Does that make sense? You see how it does it? So let's just get off of the selection. Just play it in general. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Module 8. That's actually pretty good. Like, it doesn't really need a lot of edits there, but I did notice like a little breath. And if you look on the waveform here, you see that little blip there? And if I mute this and play that, it's like a click or something. I may have sneezed, I don't know. So what I can do is I can just select that little piece there and hit delete, and it's gone. Okay, so I'll clean that up. So now let's see how it sounds. Oops, hold on. I guess I gotta unmute that. And welcome to the Module 8 overview for the multimedia project for EME 6507. So there's a little, so far so good, except for here there's a little breathiness. Did y'all hear that when I was transitioning? And I did these all on purpose so I could show you these things. I'm really a great narrator when I do this stuff. It's all. So what I want to do, let me go back to that zoom tool. If I zoom here, So now it gives me a better kind of view of the waveforms. And when I see little things like this and little things like this, I kind of notice that those are going to probably be little issues. So let me just kind of go here, put the put this here. So there's a little bit of breathiness there. So I'm going to just highlight that, delete, and click play. Now it's going to move real fast along the waveform because I spread it out, zooming in. So you have to kind of keep on that button pretty quickly. In tonight's podcast, we will discuss. So I didn't like that pause, so I may just kind of delete a little bit of that. In tonight's podcast, we will discuss some key issues to consider as you are developing your final multimedia project, which is a little breathiness there, and you can even see the blip. Just delete that. Which is due on November 24th. So let's begin. Number one. Okay. So there was, stop laughing. So there was a little bit of a pause there before I got it actually came into play. So a couple things I can do is, number one is I could kind of highlight this. I can move this up now, move the track up. And so I want kind of a bit of an well, I don't necessarily need an overlap, but I can kind of go right maybe there, delete this. Actually, let's see, highlight this a little again, delete, okay. Oh, wait, never mind, sorry, edit, undo, edit, undo, okay. So actually, maybe I'll just, instead of deleting, because they look like they're pretty close in the right length, and I don't want to overlap too much here. I don't want to go into this piece right here. Let's see what that does. So I'm going to click on the envelope tool here and just hit play. Begin. Number one. Your final submission must be web-based. And so I might cut a little bit of this out just for a little bit of overlap of the echo, and I don't know if y'all heard that. So let's see how this sounds. Your final submission must That's a little better. There's not that pause. Okay. So I'm gonna keep playing. Your final submission must be web-based and must be hosted on your rhartshorn.com subfolder. So there's a blip there I want to get rid of. So I just highlight it and hit delete. And I'm just going to kind of do that process over and over again. Okay. Does that make sense? Everybody good so far? Okay. So I'm going to minimize this one. I'm going to minimize the Joe Farron now. And I'm going to have looking for number two. So I made some changes. So number two is probably going to be here. Let me see, where's the number two at actually? Oh, because I zoomed in, let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so number two is over here. So I'm going to put my, I'm going to shift this over just a little bit because it looks like it could use a little shifting. And I'm going to put the cursor here just so I can hear the last few seconds of this. And others will all be important. It is expected you show growth in design skills from earlier in the course. No. Okay, so that big needs to be removed, and so you can see it clearly there. So I'm going to just highlight, delete that. And then there's a little breathiness here that I didn't really like. And I could just go in here. And now another tool I could do, another thing I could do is I could go to the effect. And I know y'all can't see this, but I'm in the effect menu. And then I click that noise reduction. And it gives me this noise reduction menu. 12 is usually fine, but I can increase it or decrease it or whatever. Or I can get a noise profile of it, and then I can delete it that way. So if you have a larger chunk of information, the noise reduction tends to be a nice tool. Because I selected such a really small piece, it didn't really work very well. So let me just delete that. Okay. So I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to move this number two over a bit and see how this is, and hit play. In the course. Number two. That is awesome. So a little bit off. I'm going to make a couple of quick adjustments. I'm just going to delete a little bit of this, so it kind of goes into it a little bit. And then I think there may be a little bit here I might want to delete. Let's see how this sounds. Growth in design skills from earlier in the course.
Number 2. Unlike other assignments in the course, there's no rubric.
It's all right. Not great, but I don't want to waste y'all's time. Y'all get the gist, right? Yes, everyone good so far? Do I need to pause? Any questions? Any questions so far? This is pretty easy, right? So one thing I haven't done that I need to do is I need to save. So I'm going to go to files. I'm going to share my entire screen real quick for this. So when I go to file, save project as, and I'm just, yeah, I got it. So I'm going to call it MM project intro. Save it on my desktop. Now, what it say? Notice here that it saves it as an Audacity project. So all that means and then on my desktop here, it saves an Audacity project and then this folder associated with it. This folder has all of the data. So all of these little clips of information, they're all in this folder. This right here is really just like a shell of code on how to deal with these individual folders. So you need both of those to work. So if you were to save this to your flash drive and go work on a different computer with Audacity, you would need both of these to work. If you sent me an AUP file, I couldn't open it unless I had Audacity. So this isn't a playable file. You would need to, it's sort of like a Photoshop document where, Photoshop had all of the individual layers. And you can actually open Photoshop documents with other tools, but it's sort of the analogous to a Photoshop document. It maintains all the layers and all the data on how to manage it. So, okay. But for it to be usable, you need to export it as a MP3 or other file. So here we have number 3, and I think we're getting close to done after that. So I'm going to scroll over, scroll over here. So number 3 is going to be in here. So I'm going to move it over using this envelope tool. And so I'm going to click here with my...
while also minimizing the drawbacks. If you have any questions moving forward, do not hesitate.
Okay, so, number 3 is here. I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. But so I'm going to move number 3 over. Stop. So I couldn't, if I hit pause, it doesn't allow me to edit. So make sure you hit the stop button. Looks like we have a couple quick questions. Mika, you could use any effect you want, play around with them. I just chose echo because it sounds goofy. But you can use any of them you want. Just kind of play around and do little clips of audio. And I'll actually show you how to do little clips of audio in a second. What was the name of the top middle tool to edit the audio waves? That's the envelope tool. And we'll look at that a little bit more in a moment. So you can turn it on and off. When you turn it on, it allows you to just go in any real area and kind of modify. You can modify the whole thing, or you can, as you select clicks, it'll allow you to modify segments of it. So really useful tool when you're controlling particularly fades. Okay. So where's number 3? Number 3 is here. So I'm going to click on the time change, drag it over. And I can go to number 4 because it's going to be pretty similar. But I think y'all get the gist of this now. All right. Do I need to go in and clip each of these perfectly? Everyone's good with this? You would just kind of mess around with them. So play around with the audio levels. Let me push here.
The drawbacks minimized. Number 3. Be sure you utilize media appropriately.
Pretty good.
As that will be also minimizing the drawbacks. If you have any questions moving forward.
So I would clip those a little bit, but it's pretty, it's okay the way it is. It's not stellar, but I would clip them a little bit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Joe McFerrin here, and I'm going to select this audio clip here, and I'm going to copy it. I can use Control C. Then I'm going to go down to the very end here, and I'm going to do Control V. And what I've done is just copied the intro music to the outro. So I'm going to shift it over a little bit, and this I will play around with a little bit. So I'm going to let me expand this a little bit. I don't need this kind of the fade in and fade out. I really want it to almost, well, yeah, I kind of do like that fade in and fade out effect. But maybe even have it fade in a little bit more. So let me select the envelope tool here and maybe drag that down a little bit more, have a little bit more of a fade there. Maybe a little, there we go. Something like that. You can play around with it. So I'm done with that. Click on this and then listen to the very end.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
So what I would probably do is cut this little piece here and shift this over just a little bit. Let's see how that sounds.
All for this week's podcast. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
That was pretty good. And then it should fade out to the very end. So I'm good with this. Everyone, this is perfect, right? Everyone good? So the key issues that I have here, if you notice, the audio levels here are a little bit louder. The waveforms are a little bit louder. So if I want to even these out, there's a few things I can do. One is I can just kind of go to the effect, and let me show y'all a couple things. I'm going to go pull my full screen up here. Actually, got a real quick question. Okay. So I'm going to go to full screen. So some of the effects are amplify. So effect, amplify. Select the audio for use. Okay. So if I select, let me just do this. If I go to effect, amplify, and now I can increase my dBs, and you'll notice when I do this, well, I can increase it or decrease it, and you'll notice that it goes, the waveform got really, really small. So this is amplify is a great tool for leveling out the audio. Okay. There's also I'm going to undo that. Let me find it here. There's the click removal we talked about. There's a leveler somewhere, an audio leveler. It's not great though. There is a function that allows you to level the audio a bit, but it's not the greatest. That's why I like the amplify. So I would go in and listen to this and make sure that there's no audio that jumps out as louder or less loud than other areas, because that's really important to unless there's a particular purpose. So like the number one, that I may want that to be louder to kind of grab attention and kind of, highlight the importance of what's coming next. But most of the time you're going to want it to be in the same kind of vein. So, okay. So share screen, go back to this, share. Okay. So now I'm done with this. So I'm just going to go File, Save, whoops. Save it again, replace. And then I'm going to go File, Export. Export as MP3. So you'll notice it just said your files will be mixed to one track. So what that means is, remember in Photoshop, if I save my image as a JPEG, when I opened it up, I didn't have those layers anymore, and I couldn't mess with individual layers. Well, it's the same thing with I could, but it was a lot more problematic because I would have to go in and sort of do it manually. Same thing with this. If I could export it as an MP3, it compresses it all to one track. So all of these individual tracks aren't present anymore. So I can't go in and manipulate those. I can manipulate the one track and I can separate it into different tracks and do all that, but it's a lot more, it gets more tricky to do it that way. So I'm just going to click OK. You could add in the metadata if you wanted, that's up to you. And then I now have my nice, beautiful MP3 folder or MP3 file here that y'all can't see, but it's, I'm playing it in music. And then, so I'm just playing it in my, whatever you listen to podcasts in. Okay. And that's it. So that I'm done. Somebody asked to embed in Dreamweaver, is it the same process as videos? It's a great question. We're going to actually work with a number of different audio players later on when we do the updating the multimedia project and updating the ePortfolio project. So there's tons of tutorials on how to do that online, but you can also use something like SoundCloud, and that embeds too. Sort of like SoundCloud, sort of like an audio YouTube. And then just like YouTube, you have that embed code for the videos. For SoundCloud, you have the embed code for the audio. So you could use that, but we'll look at a variety of options that you have. And then under the effect, Shazia says under the effect there's a fade in and fade out. Is that the same? So the effect has a number of the things that we did manually, but it's clunkier. So it does it, but it's just not as, it does it how Audacity thinks you want to do it. So it doesn't give you as much control over it. And it uses numbers like when you saw amplify, what do those numbers really mean? It's, you have to play around and get familiar with those to kind of to get to where you're good at them. So I prefer to use the envelope tool for that, just because it gives you more control over it. So, but it will do a fade in and fade out for you. So, and you know, I imported a bunch of audio. But if I don't want to do that, I can just go click record and go, hi, everybody, this is my podcast on blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, just keep going from kind of stream of consciousness here. And then if I want to compile, if I mess up, I can stop and start again. And as I stop and start again, it's going to start on the same track, but I might start a new track. So I might go track, add new, stereo track. That was in the tracks menu. And then I might put it here and then just, all right, so I'm starting over from this part here on this one and then stopping. And then, so you can do all of this and then go through and clean it up. And if you wanted to make it like one big narration, you could save it as an MP3 with those gaps that I did, you know, that kind of thing. There's lots of little tricks and trades that are organizational tools for you. And you could also import music and clips of music and then go around and, you know, like what I did for the echoes, all I did is I did number one, I did 4 different tracks, number 1, number 2, number 3, and then last but not least, and then I just applied the same echo effect to each of them. Once I got number 1 the way I wanted, I then just copied that effect on each of the other tracks and then saved them, muted all of them and saved one track as track 1, one track as track 2, or number 2, one track as number 3, etc. So it's a very straightforward kind of process. How are we feeling? Let's stop sharing my screen. Lisa, I'm not sure. The envelope tool doesn't give you a measurement number, but it does. You might try the fade in and fade out, just play around with it. It's really easy to use as well. And then I just like the envelope because it's quick and easy. I can just kind of click, 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 and then drag and drop real quickly and play around if I like it, don't like it. But the fade in, fade out is fine to use as well. Just play around with either one. So you can, I think in the course, there's some free music clips. I got it online. You can do a Google search for royalty-free music and that sort of thing. And GarageBand, I believe, has a ton of like kind of intro, outro type music. Yeah. So there's tons of sources for free music that you don't, and at the end you would want to cite, you know, the source of the music as you would your images or other resources that you use. I gotta do a confirmation code, don't I? Let's see, confirmation code is Audacity, be easy. So I'm not gonna put it in the chat window because I think the chat comes up as a separate file. But so the confirmation code is Audacity. Okay, so questions, that's all I had. I will post this later on tonight. Do y'all have any questions, comments, mean remarks, nice remarks? I apologize, I was a little off today. I was telling Will beforehand, I got the first round of the vaccine and I have like kind of foggy head for some reason, so it's weird. I feel fine, but just kind of more ditzy than normal. Okay, no questions, that's it?
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right, y'all have a great night.
Can I hang out for the after class questions?
Yeah, Mika, that's fine. Let me stop the recording.